So welcome to Jaw Freedom Unleashed. This is one of my favorite workshops. My name is Dr. Anthony Pellegrino, and over the past 10 years, we've been working with a lot of chronic health challenges, TMJ, and just overall this connection between the brain, the cranium, and the body. I'm so glad that you guys are here and we get to dive into this evening. So you guys just tell me, we talked about it, but tell me if this sounds a little bit familiar. All right? You wake up with your jaw tight or sore, sometimes before your eyes even open. Your jaw clicks, pops, or shifts when stress spikes. And not just spikes in the short term, but you mentioned, you said some things happened over the summer. I'm assuming it was stressful. You catch yourself clenching during the day, especially when driving or concentrating on something. You've stopped eating chewy foods because it's just not worth the pain. Headaches creep in by the mid-afternoon right behind the temple. You've tried night guards, massages, or injections that help for a while, but it comes back. Or if we don't use it, it's like, it's a crutch. If any of this sounds like you, I'll tell you that you're not, we just listened to us speak. Like, you know that you're not alone and you just might be in the right place. Now, about 10% of the world's population suffer with TMJ disorders. This is something that's really common. It's as common as ADHD nowadays. Okay, so it's something that's extremely common. We see everywhere. And everyone always refers to it as TMJ. And so you guys know, it's not really that important. But the TMJ is just the name of the joint. Every single person has a TMJ. That TMJ disorder are the symptoms and challenges that go along that are associated with when this joint is not functioning appropriately. So the reality check is that if we're suffering with dysfunction in this area, this can show up as us waking up exhausted, feeling like we wake up in the morning and we were just fighting all night. It can feel like we have to plan our meals around food, right? The food that won't hurt to chew, not that what we enjoy. Our jaw and neck tension triggers headaches that creep in and steal our focus. We've tried everything. We've seen everyone. Everyone looks at one thing. Everybody has the one answer, yet it might help for a little, but always comes back. And you've probably, for some of you, started to wonder, do I just have to live like this? The question is what if, of course, we feel like that, like it can feel like our body's broken. But what if it wasn't? Now, when we look at TMJ, and really, we talked about that root cause word that you use so much, and I love that, right? I always view symptoms as not the problem itself, but rather a signal. A signal. It's our body trying to tell us something. Now, our symptoms kind of are like the tip of the iceberg, right? And if you guys have seen the movie Titanic, you know what happens when there's a tip of an iceberg. The problem is that even though we can see this, what's underneath the surface? A lot more. So the root of the iceberg is really what a bigger problem is. And what we do typically with our society is we see the symptom that's there and we just treat the symptom. We go to a dentist and we say, my jaw is so bad, I'm clenching all the time. And what they say, well, how do we just get you to stop clenching? We say, I have these headaches. Well, what can I give you to make your headaches go away? And it's just treat the symptom, treat the symptom, treat the symptom. Pain isn't our enemy, it's our body trying to protect us. Tension in our body is our body's way of communicating, I am not safe. Clenching, grinding, headaches are warning lights. Our goal isn't to just silence the symptoms. And you experienced that, you said, hey, I got the night guard, it helps, but like, I know that there is something else there. I want to understand what my body's telling us, read the signals and say, well, what actually is going on? What is causing this problem? Because when we understand what the cause is, we can do something to be able to correct it. Does that make sense, guys? Cool. So, what is TMJ really? TMJ is a tension, pressure, and miscommunication in 3 different systems. Now, these 3 systems are extremely important, and we're going to talk a lot about them. Of course, it's the TMJ itself. It's the mandibular condyle that comes in. It's the disc that goes over it. And if you've ever experienced clicking or popping, what that is telling me is that your disc isn't stable, and the popping you're experiencing is when this condyle actually rides over the disc, okay, because it's not moving appropriately. And the nerves, like the trigeminal nerve, the facial nerve, other things like that are in this area. That's number 1. Number 2 is the upper neck and skull. Now, the upper neck and skull have an amazing feedback loop with the TMJ, and the actual stability in the jaw is extremely closely related to the stability in the upper neck. There's tons of postural feedback that goes to your brain, where literally, if you have a writing mechanism, where if there's anything that's not going on inappropriately upper neck, you will tilt your head and jaw in order for your brain to feel like it is level against the horizon. Very important. And the last piece is the nervous system. Our brain, our spinal cord, our central nervous system. And if you don't believe me, all of you said this got worse when I was having other health issues or stress, and that is your nervous system. Does that make sense so far? Cool. I'm going to do a lot of checking in and just making sure it makes sense, because everything we're going to talk about builds on the one from before.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said with that. You move it to, what is that?
Yep. So what will happen a lot, and I'm going to continue to kind of go deeper into this and show more and more and more, and I'll actually take out the skull and show you specifically. But if there's something that's going on in our upper neck that puts our head like this, I can't walk around like this all day. So my brain will have compensations to make my eyes and my jaw level. So it will actually start to change and misalign and torque things in order for my brain to be able to keep my eyes and jaw level with the horizon. Important, right? Yeah. And this is one of the things that when we work really closely with dentists, when we do, I have dentists that won't even prescribe a night guard or anything until we get the upper neck stable, because it just won't actually do anything that lasts. And not everybody feels that way, of course, because sometimes everybody just wants to get in there. And I like the adage, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail, you know? So like some people like to get in there, but there's lots of different people with lots of different approaches. Okay? I was clicking the button here. Okay. Cool. So with that question, perfect. Now we know that these three systems all work together. Again, the spine and skull, the jaw, and the nervous system. They all work together and compensate for one another constantly. You can't have an issue with one without having an issue with the other two. You can't make a change in one without changing other two, because they're all working in conjunction with one another all the time. Now, most of us who are sitting here, not standing, I'm the only one standing, most of us who are sitting here, has never had anybody actually look at all those three systems that depend on each other at the same time, have we? And it's one of the reasons that we have limited results. But more about that in the future. So what does this actually look like? I've gotten to look at hundreds of x-rays of individuals with the TMJ, and almost every single one has the exact same neck, which is a loss of curve. Head comes forward like this, every single time. Now, I have this postural compression here. Now, as I'm sure you could imagine, it would be really hard for me to walk around all day talking about keeping level this way, but I'm like leaning forward. That's really hard to do. So what do you think my brain will do with my lower back if I need to get my head over my pelvis? It's going to go ahead and it's going to, well, I can't stand like this, so I'm going to lean back like this. And then now I have a posture that looks like this all the time. Head comes forward, low back arches like that. Okay, now what happens when that happens? There's tightness in the front here. The muscles start to guard in the front. They start to guard and they start to compensate, like we discussed. Now when I do this, if you guys put your head forward, you're going to feel some pulling here in the front. And it's drawing everything down. Now the drawing down is going to do a couple of different things. It's going to pull our tongue down, which is going to cause it to not rest on the roof of our mouth, especially at night. So one of the things that we're going to do, because our nervous system feels safety when we sleep and breathe at night, especially with our mouth closed. Nasal breathing is hugely important. It actually is what allows our face to develop appropriately. A lot of times when we see these challenges, like through multiple generations, not saying this is the case, but things like snoring, mouth breathing, different challenges like that are persistent because the actual shape of our jaw is developed by having the tongue on our roof of our mouth at night. Okay, that's one of the things we're able to do. So we open up our mouth, we snore, we have different compressions like that, and one of the things that my brain is going to be able to do in order to get stability there is to clench the jaw, keep it nice and tight. Now, speaking of stability, if I'm in this overarching position, one of the things that's going to happen, as this happens not just for a day, a week, or a month, but chronically, is I'm going to start to lose a lot of stability in what's called the pelvic floor. Has anyone heard that terminology before, the pelvic floor? So pelvic floor is something that's really, really massively important. Now, if I can't get stability here, okay, a lot of times we'll see people stand there and they'll just constantly, it'll be like really hard for them to be able to stay still. They'll always be swaying, especially side to side, because they just can't get stability. Now, as I'm sure that you can imagine, this is really exhausting and stressful for the brain to every single second try to get control of my body, no matter I'm standing or sitting or anything else like that. Because you guys see that if I was just doing this constantly and my brain's just constantly trying to figure out what my body's doing, that could be really exhausting, right? So what it's going to do to compensate for that is it's going to say, I don't have stability here, so I am going to get stability as much as I possibly can. So what it will start to do is it will just spasm and contract everything, from the low back to the mid back to the neck to the jaw, and no one just like this all the time. Has anyone had the pleasure of giving birth in the room? I'm raising my hand as an example of what you could do, okay? But I have not given birth. But I've been there for 2 births. And one of the things as we go through birth classes, a lot of times that birth educators will do, well, they will teach mom, the birth person, to actually relax her jaw during labor. Has anyone been told that? No? Something that's really important, because the tension in the jaw is related to the tension in the pelvic floor, because they compensate for one another. Huge, right? So we have our jaw shift, retracts, our tongue gets pulled down. The tension that's there isn't just not normal. It's actually put there. Now, what does this look like? A lot of times I'll see patients with TMJ that'll come in and they'll tell me like they're just really, really, really stiff all the time, all over. And usually this person come in and they're fired up because they love things like massage and they love things like chiropractic. They go, they pop like a glow stick or whatever else that they do, and it's like, oh my gosh, I finally have some relief. And 2 days later, it goes right back to where it was. And then they go and they go and they go, and it's almost like they get addicted. I had a patient one time come to me and say, I love chiropractors. I'm looking for a new one. I have been going 3 times a week for 3 years. It is the only thing that I can do to get through the week. And I'm like, great, I'm glad that you found something. But if you're seeing, like, I think in many cases, starting at 3 days a week is something that's important. But for 3 years, there might be something else going on. Now, here's the problem. If my brain is putting all of this spasm here to be able to get stability, and we go and we do a massage in this case, which massage is awesome. We just have to know what's happening physiologically. We do a massage or we do chiropractic and we go and we introduce a force that breaks up that spasm that your brain put there. Obviously, it feels really good because it's tight, right? But the next day when you wake up in the morning, your brain goes, wait, I put my stability structure in there and today it's missing. I don't know why. So what is it going to do? It's going to contract it again. And it's going to do it even harder. And then we go and we go and we end up keeping this feed mechanism that makes us feel better temporarily, but can actually hinder our results in the long run. Ooh, exciting, right? So, TMJ is not something that's just random. It can start in the jaw and the upper neck and cause compensation down below, or we can have something going on down below that causes compensation up above. But the 2 things need to be looked at and addressed simultaneously, or again, we'll continue to spin our wheels, go from doctor to doctor to doctor, and always have temporary solutions. So, the jaw, the neck, and the nervous system connection. This happens really, really, really simply, more simply than I just put it, okay? Number 1, the jaw's job is motion, right? The upper neck and the pelvis, too. The upper neck stabilizes the neck, head, and jaw, as we discussed, and the lower pelvis and lower back stabilize the body. It's all about stability. The brain stem and the vagus nerve in the nervous system regulate the tone of the body. Now, this right here is my friend Bob. Can you guys say hi, Bob? Hi, Bob. Great. Okay. So Bob has all of these different colors on his skull. Does anybody know why there's all of these different colors? There's different bones. All different, but good. Now, they're all different bones that when you were born were completely separate. Okay? And over time, they began fusing and coming together. This thing right here is a soft spot in the child. fuses anywhere during like the first 1 to 2 years. This closes up in the first 4 months. This one about 15 months. This and this about 18 months. This bone right here is 2 individual pieces until 8 months. There's still cartilage down here. Some sources say up until, some people say 25. Some people say there's still cartilage in the bone in the skull until 30 to 40 years old. This is extremely, extremely movable. As the jaw, as you can see, it inserts into here. What we'll often see is torsion and imbalances in the actual bone and muscles of the skull that are relating to this dysfunction, how the jaw is actually moved. Now, this is really important to me because the brainstem sounds really important, right? Exits through this hole right here. And the vagus nerve, anyone heard that terminology before, vagus nerve? Exits through right here. You think that the proper structure and the function of the jaw, of the upper neck, and of the skull is really important and critical to proper nervous system function. And if we think the proper nervous system function is really critical to the overall structure and function of the cranium, upper neck, and jaw. Well, let's continue to find out. Anyway, when there's distortion there, that causes a physiology known as fight or flight. Let me know if you've heard that terminology before, fight or flight. Cool. What does this look like when we have this distortion pattern? Who's heard the terminology Bruxism? Yeah. Every one of you, if you haven't heard it, it's because you weren't paying attention to your doctors when you talked about it. Because every single one of you mentioned that we are clenching and grinding. But you're not alone again. It's 25 to 30% of the 20 to 30% of the population experiences bruxism and grinding. That's huge, right? Well, what is actually happening here? Again, we're trying to get stability. So if I can't get stable, I'm going to clench and grind my jaw in order to be able to lock it up to get stability. The tight muscles, what are called like pterygoid muscles, which actually go from, there's a bunch of different tight muscles, these are, I think, are the most important, from the back part of inside the mouth and palate here and attach into our jaw. These muscles right here are protective. They're there, they're spasming to be able to get as much stability as I possibly can as it attaches into the cranium. They are a byproduct, this clenching, of wound up, overstimulated, unstable nervous system. Now, this is important because a lot of people think or are told, oh, your nervous system is anxious, is wound up because you're clenching all the time. I believe, based off of everything that I know, especially that this gets worse when we get more stressed, this is not the cause, but is rather it's the effect. Exactly. Right up there. It's not the cause, but it's the effect. So, let's go further into fight or flight. I want you guys to think about fight or flight. There is a bear that comes into this room snarling at us to attack us. A bear, a tiger, you're forced to public speak, whatever it is that frightens you, that scares you, that winds up your nervous system, what is your posture going to do? We're going to start, are we going to be nice and open and confident like this? Or are we going to naturally start to fold down like this? Does this look like anything that we were discussing earlier? The compensation mechanism that we saw with all the x-rays that we know about with an individual with TMJ. This fight or flight posture is a byproduct of the stress that is one of the causes of the TMJ dysfunction, that causes further posture going like this, that causes further fight or flight, that causes further TMJ, that causes further clenching, that causes further fight or flight, and it's just a feedback loop and a loop and a loop. And if we only address one without addressing the other, we're sitting right here on a Tuesday night. Cool? Makes sense? What's that?
We were just right before you started speaking, she was showing me something about a honey badger. Hey, when you curl up and hunt, she'd be
Yeah. Honey badger don't care.
She just happened to just show that to me.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Are we ready to get out of the cycle? Let's take it piece by piece of what this actually looks like. What's happening in our body and what we can do about it. Now, when I talk about fight or flight and the nervous system, this is the most important piece of all of this, and it's not specific to your symptoms, but it's specific to health and root cause and nervous system and the holistic view, okay? It was Sarah, especially for you because of a comment that you made about when it started. So, our nervous system has a piece of it called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is what does everything that we don't have to think about. So me breathing, I do that unconsciously, autonomic nervous system. My heart beating, my stomach digesting food, my reproductive system, hormones being released in my body, everything is under control of the autonomic nervous system. Now this autonomic nervous system has two branches. We have what's called our sympathetic. This is the fight or flight, okay? And then we also have what's called the parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest. Where would y'all rather be? Parasympathetic. And if we're gonna be honest, I mean, life's about balance, but where most of us probably spending more time sympathetic, fight or flight, right? Now, the fight or flight is exactly what comes on when there is a tiger there that's trying to attack me. And my brain and nervous system are designed perfectly. Every single second, what it does is it tries to protect us and keep us alive, no matter what. That is its number one priority, stay alive till tomorrow. That is the only priority, really, that it has. Stay alive until next second. So, let's say there's a bear there that's trying to eat me. Do you think that my brain and nervous system care at all about eating food and digesting a Chipotle burrito? Does it care? If it tried to do that, would you guys agree that that's a waste of resources because we need to be able to escape the tiger? Yes? Cool. Do you think that it cares at all about reproductive system? No. Do you think it cares about my heart? Yeah. It's going to start pumping my heart really hard to be able to bring blood flow to my arms and legs so I can fight. It's going to have me start to breathe really quickly and shallowly. This is all, it's going to dilate my pupils so that I can take in more light and have more awareness. It's going to do all of these things. They all sound pretty good in the short term. But the problem is that being there long term, it's just too energy heavy. We can't really keep up with it. We really shouldn't be there for more than like 15 minutes to an hour. And most of us are probably there most of the day. Not all of the day because you do sleep, but most of the day, you're probably there. Do you think that my brain cares at all about my immune system when I'm stuck here? Good question, right? Well, on one hand, it's kind of like the immune system isn't really that important if I need to escape a tiger attack. But on the other hand, if I do escape that tiger attack, there's a good chance I'm going to get injured. And if I get injured, that means I have a pretty high rate of infection. So what actually happens when the nervous system is stuck in fight or flight is the body will ramp up and overactivate the immune system. Just out of curiosity, what's the definition of an autoimmune disorder? An overactive immune system. It's one of the many reasons that when I meet individuals with TMJ, I will also see things like high levels of inflammation that can result in things like ear infections, dizziness, and tinnitus on what's called the vestibular cochlear nerve, or the cranial nerve that goes to the ears. It's one of the reasons we have this high rate of mental health challenges. It's one of the reasons, which also goes with chronic pain, of course. It's also one of the reasons that we'll see individuals with IBS more likely to suffer with digestive issues like IBS, irregular painful menstrual cycles, because it's not just a structure thing, it's a nervous system physiology thing. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, which one would you guys rather be in most of the time? Fight or flight or rest and digest? Rest and digest, cool. I've got good news is that rest and digest, there's lots of different pieces of what regulates the rest and digest system. The most important piece is what's called the vagus nerve, okay? The vagus nerve is named in Latin for wanderer. There's not going to be a test on that. I don't even know why I'm telling you, but it's the truth. And the reason it's called that is because it exits the cranium through the jugular foramen, which is right where I showed you guys earlier. It comes past the upper cervical, the upper neck, and then it comes down, goes through the thoracic cavity, it goes to my lungs, goes to my heart. It's what slows down my heart rate. It's the reason that your heart rate isn't regularly like 120. Vagus nerve input is what slows that down. It goes down to my digestive system. It improves digestive function. It decreases inflammation in the body, and it heightens reproductive function as well. These are all largely regulated by the vagus nerve. I like bringing up the importance of the vagus nerve because the good thing is that there are things that you can do, like right now, like tonight, like tomorrow, that can improve function of the vagus nerve. If you know your body's stuck in fight or flight, which you guys probably know, like if that is the case for you, we are going to talk about how we test for it, but you probably know anyway. Do you think that if there was something you could do tonight that would help that you get out of that system a little bit, would that be something that would be beneficial? Yes? Okay. Number one, surround yourself with good people and positive social relationships. This is huge. I think that this is something that is amazing, and we saw really high levels of anxiety, of course, during the pandemic. And I think one of the reasons we didn't really have many face-to-face positive social relationships. We are a tribal species, and just like we were using that, like most of our, I like to call how our nervous system works is what I like to call caveman physiology, which is why I like the tiger attacking in the cave example. But in the same way, when we are in a tribe, when we feel safe, when we're with a group of people, we have positive relationships, our body feels safer because we are safer. So we have better vagus nerve function just simply when we're with people. Like the research shows that even if your spouse is annoying and snores and kicks you all night, you will have a higher quality of sleep sleeping next to somebody than not because of how wired and caveman our brain is. Isn't that wild? Okay, so when you go home and your spouse is snoring, we'll talk more about what that happens there, but it's also like, well, good, at least you're here because I'm going to have a better quality of sleep. Number two is things like cold exposure. This is what all the bros on your Instagram are doing in the cold plungers. Big fan of it. It's something that actually hacks our vagus nerve because it's just really, really, really awesome for function of the vagus nerve. Things that our grandparents did, like gargling. The vagus nerve has a lot of input from the back part of the palate. So gargling helps to stimulate that function.
Gargling anything specific or just general?
Just the act of gargling. Yeah. Which is one of the things. Yeah, it's just you can gargle salt water. I don't like antiseptic stuff, but just gargling salt water would be something that would be beneficial, or just water. Singing, chanting, and humming. This is something that's really impactful. If anyone's ever done yoga, you might do something like the Om at the end of class. And it's really cleansing. And one of the reasons it has a massive stimulation on the vagus nerve. It's also why many children with autism, you see singing, chanting, humming, doing repetition, because especially that hum, the way it vibrates the back part of the palate, it stimulates the vagus nerve, and it's one of the ways that kids just know innately that it calms down their nervous system when they're feeling stressed, which I think is pretty fascinating. Massage and deep pressure, any physical touch, deep pressure is a good stimulator of the vagus nerve. Laughter, again, kind of with positive social relationships. One of the things, I use a Whoop, I track my quality of sleep every single night. One of the things that I started doing maybe 2 years ago, also because I have an extremely dark sense of humor, is I started listening to stand-up comedy every single night. I won't tell you who I listen to because I don't want you to judge me based off of the language that they use. But I listen to stand-up comedy as I go to sleep, like almost every single night, especially if I am feeling more anxious. And my quality of sleep every night is like, there's huge differences between when I do that and when I don't. In fact, if I'm like laying there, I like to go album by album. And I have typically I know how quickly it happens because I'll put on an album that I want to listen to, and I'll go put the same album on the next night, and I'll be like, I only got through like 2 minutes, and I don't remember anything from that point. So I think laughter is really good for vagus nerve stimulation. Yoga and Tai Chi, massively important as well, okay? A lot of that slow breathing, slow motion, it goes with the other things. Again, breathing deeply and slowly, you kind of get to see this slow, controlled breath, calm, all of these different really natural things that we've known for years are really good for our body, but maybe we don't have the same double-blind, randomized control trials as the pharmaceutical medications out there. We've just known culturally and innately for thousands of years that these are beneficial. We're learning, the more and more we learn about how the nervous system actually works, the more we're learning that these things actually work for really clear and specific reasons. Exercise is something that's massively important. And of course, one of the things that I'm going to talk about here is chiropractic. I think this is something that's very, very, very unique on here. And we do take a unique approach to chiropractic that I'll tell you all about. But I think this is unique on here because all of these are really good at stimulating the vagus nerve, right? I know that no matter what, no matter who I am, I could have a good vagus nerve or a bad vagus nerve. If I have good relationships, I gargle and I do a cold plunge, I'm going to stimulate vagus nerve function, which is good. But what none of them do address is the reason why it might not be working right in the first place. And while chiropractic, especially in the upper neck, does help to stimulate vagus nerve function, what might be even more important is that when we actually look at what could be going on, the dysfunction, the imbalance in the upper neck and cranium, it could be a reason that the vagus nerve isn't working appropriately in the first place. Not in every case, but in many cases. So, what does this look like? What is our approach? What is different? Our job is to restore communication through the nervous system, pelvis, upper neck, and cranium, which is the key to lasting TMJ relief. As I said earlier, the problem with most of the things that we've done is that we have maybe looked at 1 or 2 or 3 of these individually, never together. And in order, because of the way the nervous system compensates and the body compensates, we need to look at all of these individually, or it's going to be very temporary. Most people with TMJ like you who have come into this office have tried everything. Night cards is a big one, massages. Nobody said Botox. I have a lot of patients who have tried Botox, which can help deaden the nerves, but it's also injecting a neurotoxin into our body, which I think is something important, especially when we know there's a nervous system dysfunction. Medications, physical therapy, they've tried everything. They were told, oh, it's this. It is just a jaw problem, or it's just stress, or it's just your bite. It's just this and not all. What everyone's missed is that the jaw does not live in isolation. We cannot look at it by itself. It's part of an integrated system that relies on 3 key foundations. Number 1 is the nervous system, which controls the tone of the musculature, joint alignment, and our body's perception of safety. Number 2, the structural foundation, which provides the balance and stability that every movement, including our jaw, depends on. We know if our low back isn't stable, we are going to clench everything, not just our jaw, but everything in order to be able to gain stability so that we can get through the day. And our upper neck and cranium. Direct communication lies between the jaw, the brainstem, and the vagus nerve. When even one of these systems loses coordination, the body will always adapt. The muscles will tighten, the joints will compress, and then the symptoms appear. That's why every quick fix that we've done gives us temporary relief, but it just treats the tension and the symptom and not the overarching pattern, because we must look at these things together. So, what corrects that pattern? We restore communication from the foundation and pelvis to the command center and brainstem so that the entire system can finally work together again. So what does this look like? I'm going to give you 6 steps. Cool. Number 1, everyone's like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, yeah, we'll get there, right? The most important piece is that we have to listen and learn. What is going on? What have you tried? What did life look like leading to this point? What injuries? What issues are there? There are no 2 TMJ cases. You 2 are related very closely. Your cases are not the same. There are no 2 TMJ cases that are the same. The history helps to reveal what the body is protecting. From there, what we do is we measure and we map the stress, the interference, the irritation. What we measure comes in 3 different categories. We do nervous system-based scans, which is looking for inflammation in the actual spinal nerves. It's looking at your posture, but not just your posture, but the actual electrical nervous system activity going to the spinal and cranial muscles so that we can see exactly how your body is holding itself in space, what's working well, what's not, and we can actually visualize those compensation patterns, which is something that's really cool. Also do a TMJ, cranial, and palate evaluation, looking not just externally, literally what we'll feel, especially if you are a clencher, I will feel ridging, often here, meaning that you've clenched for so long that you've actually started to compress your cranium together. Does that make sense with headaches? How it shows up there? Yeah, there's something we can do about that. We'll also feel ridging inside the palate as well. Your palate or your maxilla is two bones that come together and should meet evenly. So right now, this will be a little fun experiment. I want all of you to take your tongue or a finger, I don't care, just don't touch me after. Run along the inside of your palate from side to side. There's a good chance that most of you in this room have this big old ravine that's coming down the middle. That should not be there. It should be perfectly flat, like a U, like this. If it's there, or if it's very high, it means that, chicken or the egg, the clenching and TMJ dysfunction was there for so long they compressed it together, or because of things like birth trauma, because of things like our modern diet, how we don't allow proper chewing, because of things like sitting in desks in this poor posture for years and years and years that drew this down, the compression happened that actually caused the structural part of our TMJ. All of this goes together. If you have that ravine and things are too narrow, there's a good chance that your quality of sleep at night is completely tanked also, because you can't get appropriate sleep if you're not nasal breathing, because that's what's required, and it brings in what's called nitric oxide into your lungs that allows your arteries to be able to dilate appropriately so you can have proper oxygenation at night, even though you're breathing less frequently. And if you're opening your mouth, that's not happening, and it's ramping up your nervous system further. Isn't this wild? So anyway, that should come together. So we, of course, want to see that. We also want to feel the soft tissue inside the mouth and inside the TMJ also, so we can see where those imbalances are happening. And we will also take motion x-rays of the spine also to be looking at the exact patterns that are off and to also see exactly what's moving and what isn't, so we know what we have to do to actually be able to correct that. We can pinpoint and see where the communication breakdown begins, which often isn't exactly where we are feeling the pain. And from there, we start to build the foundation. One of my jobs, which doesn't really matter to you, but it matters very much to me, is I have to figure out if this is a pattern that starts as a primary in the upper neck, or does it start as a primary with the lower back? Basically, is what's going on down below compensating for here, or is what's going on for here compensating down below? You guys don't need to know that, but what you do know is that the way that we approach both of those things are completely different. And if you've been seeing somebody who doesn't know to check that those two things are doing something different, it also could be a reason that we're getting temporary relief. Because a bottom-up issue that his pelvis needs to be stabilized, it doesn't matter what we do to the face, to the jaw, to the night guard, to anything else, it will not hold unless that's addressed. Make sense? So, correct spinal and pelvic distortions to create stability and symmetrical tone, because if the base is off, the entire system compensates upwards, and balancing that is required for jaw balance. Once that's stable, we'll start to restore communication at the top. Now, especially with TMJ cases, I don't like to use a lot of manual force in the upper neck because, again, we're talking about not having stability. So if it's unstable, the last thing that I want to do is introduce a big force in there, even though it might feel good, and then all of a sudden, like, we've actually made it worse, even though we have temporary relief. Now, there are many cases that that's not the exact presentation where manual adjustments are more appropriate, but again, it's something that we actually analyze for and check. So we use instruments to be able to, especially oftentimes, maybe 80% of the time in the upper neck of TMJ cases, to actually get the corrections. There's not that typical twisting, cracking, or popping that you'd experience, and this is so that we can just get the stability that's required. So this helps calm the brainstem and reset the different tone patterns. Think of this like the switchboard for the jaw and the facial muscles. Once we start to release this upper neck, everything changes, absolutely everything. We also will add in advanced cranial work, which honestly is something that I'm very, very, very passionate about. The chiropractic here is something that's great. We've been here for a decade, and we've served people with all different health challenges and conditions, from the local and from afar. The cranial work that we do here is really unique. We are one of, for even just with pediatrics, there are five certified pediatric craniopaths in the world, and there's 2 of them that are here. So, like, we get people from all over the tri-state area that will actually come here for this level of cranial work, which applies to adults in TMJ also, but this is really a big thing. We'll actually perform precise cranial corrections using a variety of different techniques. This is really where I'm kind of like, what really sets the results apart, because people have tried things like craniosacral therapy, they've tried things like chiropractic, they've tried craniosacral therapy, cranial chiropractic, they've tried Gillespie Institute, they've tried all those different pieces. Our doctors are trained in all of those different techniques, and we get to use exactly what it is that your body needs. So we are trying to deliver the highest quality of care constantly, and we're constantly training and getting better at that. So what we'll look to do is mobilize the sutures. We talked about how some of those ridging that happens. Those are where the bones coming together, so we can actually get those to pump a bit better. We can decompress the TMJ, restore the very rhythmic motions of the skull, release the fascia and the muscles that are inside the mouth. So one of the things we talked about, how that autoimmune connection kind of comes in as well. When we see that ridging like you guys experienced, what that tells me is your skull should be pumping all of the time. It's something you can't feel. It just gently pumps what's called cerebrospinal fluid. And if you think about the blood flow in your body, your brain doesn't get blood flow the same way as other things do, the other parts of your body. A lot of the nutrients that go to your brain, and more importantly, the actual drainage of toxins and metabolites from the brain, they happen through the pumping of the cranium. So if we're locked up in clenching all the time and we stop that pumping from happening, it's one of the reasons that TMJ goes with challenges like brain fog and fatigue, because we can have a buildup metabolites in the actual central nervous system, okay? So that's just one of the pieces that we look at. Our goal here is to free the system that controls jaw balance, sinus pressure, balanced sleep, and more. Once we go through all that, our job is to continue. Each visit, we recheck, rebalance, and strengthen your body's new pattern. Every time that you're here, we do something a little bit different. Our goal is to always make sure we're adjusting you based off of today, not do an evaluation one time and then continue to see you and do the same thing every time for the next 3 years. That's not our game plan. We want your body to learn to self-regulate so that relief becomes your new normal and your health helps you experience life, not take away from it. This for me is one of the reasons that I wake up in the morning, because for so many people that I meet, their day-to-day looks like this. They ask themselves the question, I'm feeling this way today, so what am I going to be able to do? More importantly, what am I not going to be able to do today? And what I want to get to is we wake up and be like, wow, this is what my health is today. What am I going to be able to accomplish and experience? And those are two very different ways. We only have so many minutes on this earth, and I want to make everyone count. So, what does this look like? This right here is Maria. She's one of my favorite people. And talk about that ravine in your mouth. I saw some of you guys, I can't wait to do some of your palate evaluations, which we'll talk about. Saw some of your guys eyes light up. It can be really bad there. And Maria had, honestly, one of the worst ones that I'd ever seen. There was almost no room to actually feel the palate because it was just so ridged. And this, for TMJ and clenching, was so bad that she had tried everything under the sun, and her doctors were like, the only solution is we're going to go in and break your jaw and then reset it. Now, for some of you guys, when I do this workshop, almost every time I've had somebody be like, this is a smaller group, but almost every time I've had somebody be like, wow, that is what they told me too. And sometimes I've had people be like, listen, if that's the only thing I got to do, if that's going to work, like, let me do it. But for her, she was like, I just feel like there's a root that's missing. If there's something that's causing my clenching and I break my jaw and reset it, well, what's going to happen in 10 years? And they're like, well, we'll deal with it then. So we did this evaluation. We saw the exact postural changes, reversed curve here in the neck, massive things coming forward. She almost like couldn't breathe through her nose. Actually, when we were doing her corrections inside the palate, she when she breathed, it sounded like she was snoring. It'd be like every time she took a deep breath in, because it was just so restricted in there. But we stuck with it. We did a lot of work, and she's over her fear of going to bed at night because she doesn't know if she's going to wake up in the morning because of the disruptive snoring. Piece to her household, she's getting restful sleep, kickboxing 2 to 3 times a week. She's able to focus on her business. She found that with her extra energy, she could manage her weight better. And she was even able to see, again, with that fight or flight response, improvements in her digestive system, which is awesome because when we know that they're connected, if we get to the root, all of a sudden those other pieces start to get better. And really that's what it's about, right? I could be like let's set the TMJ. And cool, we should do that. But I don't want to do that if it's not going to completely alter and change the trajectory of our life so we can experience it. That's Maria. I love that. I've got one more one that I want to show you because I sometimes think that I've talked to you a lot, and sometimes it's better to hear from somebody else, right? So I'll just introduce you guys to Kristen.
My initial concern was my TMJ issues, and a symptom I never even realized was connected was biting my cheek, which I hadn't done since I came to this office. I feel like I can brush my teeth better because those muscles are relaxed and I can open my mouth wider. I no longer use my night guard because I don't clench my teeth anymore. What I love about being adjusted is the fact that it's not just a temporary fix. It is a long-lasting process that you notice over and over and over again. Even simple as I feel like I can walk taller, I feel like I can move my neck more, I can open my mouth wider, eating is more enjoyable. It's not a temporary adjustment, a temporary fix. It is a solution.
These stories aren't rare. So the questions I just want you guys to ask yourself, just reflecting. Do you feel that your system is on guard? Do you feel like you're clenching your jaw and grinding your teeth? Does stress make your jaw, neck, or head tighten? Do headaches, fatigue come and go for no reason? Are there other challenges that you're experiencing that you had no idea were related, but now that we actually talk about how the body works, you're like, I wonder if I am in fight or flight. And are you tired of trying everything and nothing lasts? So I believe that everybody deserves the opportunity to see what their life could look like, to see if there's imbalance in their jaw, cranium, and spine that is causing this, and to be able to figure out what it is that they can do to be able to live a little bit of a different life. I told you what the process looks like. We start by doing a very thorough consultation where we listen and we understand and we set goals. We do a nervous system evaluation where we do neurological scans, take motion x-rays, we do palate, TMJ, cranial evaluation, and we'll lay out a specific game plan from there. How are we going to balance the pelvis? How are we going to address the upper neck? And how are we going to use our advanced cranial care to balance the TMJ and upper neck? How often am I going to see you? How long is that going to go for before retaking x-rays and seeing how our process has changed? We go through all of that. Now that initial evaluation in the office, I'll tell you, is very thorough. It's really amazing, gives you guys great information. And typically when somebody comes in off the street, that costs about $300 to do, okay? Which I think compared to all the different things that you guys have done out there in the world, is probably something that's really fair. But with all that being said, I'm so grateful and glad that I got to talk to you guys about one of my greatest passions for the last, it's like 61 minutes, but I started 5 minutes late. So for the last 54 minutes, okay? And because of that, again, I believe that everybody has and deserves the opportunity to find out, is there something different that they need to do for their life? So this is what we're going to do. I have Jessica and Brittany there. Can you guys say hi, guys? Hi. What they're going to do is this. They're going to hand out some feedback form for you guys. Just asking, what was your takeaway for tonight? Is there any topics you want to learn about in the future? I read all of those, so fill those out, okay? On the bottom there's going to be a place to circle yes that you want to schedule an evaluation for yourself or for a family member or for a loved one or anything else like that. Circle yes, and when you hand that in, what the girls will do, they'll go ahead and they'll set up the evaluation here in the office, redo the consultation, full neurological scans, motion x-rays, TMJ, palate, and cranial evaluation. And then after that, what we do is we set up a time to go over everything about your plan. And when you hand that in, instead of it being the $300 here in the office to do that full evaluation, they're going to discount that completely down to $75 just as a thank you for being here and being somebody who takes action. So thank you guys so much for spending time with me. I'm going to grab some water. I'll answer any questions you guys might have on an individual basis. I'll tell you the majority, the most common question, the most common answer that I give to questions is, because everybody's different, I have no idea. We've got to do an evaluation and find out, okay? So thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in just a few minutes.